Listen, everybody. In the village of Ugwike, there was a man who had attended over 300 parties in his lifetime. 300 parties, my people. If you calculate that in food alone, this man had consumed enough jollof rice to feed a small nation. He had never bought a single bottle of drink. He had never brought food. He had never wrapped even one piece of meat in a nylon bag and said, "Let me contribute something small." He had never put his hand in his pocket for any celebration that was not his own. And even his own celebrations, my people, he somehow found a way to make other people pay for. But this same man, this exact same man, would always be the last person sitting down when every other guest had packed up and gone home. His name was Nwafor, Uncle Nwafor, aged 48. Barely like a man who had eaten at other people's tables for 48 straight years, which, my people, was not an exaggeration. It was a medical fact. If you did a scan of Uncle Nwafor's stomach, the doctor would find jollof rice from 1998 still sitting in there, completely comfortable, refusing to leave, just like the owner. Now, before we enter today's story, let me give you the full biography of this man, because you cannot understand what happened without knowing the history.
Uncle Nwafor grew up in Ugwike as a cheerful boy, friendly, sociable, the kind of child who could walk into any compound and make himself comfortable within 5 minutes. His mother used to say he had a gift for people. She said it with pride. She said it at church. She told all the neighbors. What she did not realize, what took the entire village another 30 years to fully understand, was that her son's gift for people was specifically, precisely, surgically a gift for eating their food and drinking their drinks without contributing anything in return. It started small. As a teenager, Nwafor discovered something that would change his life forever. He discovered that if you arrived at a party early and looked busy, carrying chairs here, directing people there, talking loudly like you were the one who organized the whole thing, nobody would ask if you brought anything. Nobody. They will look at your busy, confident face and assume you are part of the organizing committee. And if you stayed late after the real organizers were tired and their eyes were no longer sharp, you could eat again. Sometimes a third time. Sometimes you could even carry something home. The first time young Nwafor carried food home from a party he did not contribute to, he felt a small guilt. A tiny, quiet guilt, like a whisper. He ignored it. The second time, the guilt was smaller. By the 10th time, the guilt had packed its own bag and left. It did not even say goodbye. By the time Nwafor was 25, this system had been perfected. By 30, it was a lifestyle. By 40, it was a career. By 48, my people, Uncle Nwafor was not just a freeloader. He was an artist, a professional, a man who had turned other people's celebrations into his personal meal plan with the kind of dedication that, if applied to actual work, would have made him a millionaire.
Now, the question you are asking yourself is this: did nobody ever stop him? My people, they tried. Oh, they tried. Mama Eze was the first woman in Ugwike to attempt a serious strategy against Uncle Nwafor. She was having a naming ceremony for her grandchild, and she had heard the stories. So she locked all her drinks in the boys' quarters 2 days before the party and gave the only key to her eldest son, Chukudi, with very clear instructions. "Chukudi," she said, looking him directly in the eyes, "do not give this key to anybody. Not your father, not the pastor, not the governor, nobody." Chukudi said, "Yes, Mama." On the day of the party, Uncle Nwafor arrived looking clean and innocent. He chatted with Chukudi for approximately 6 minutes. Nobody knows exactly what was said in those 6 minutes. But at the end of those 6 minutes, Chukudi opened the boys' quarters himself. He did not know why he did it. He could not explain it afterward. It was as if his hand had acted independently of his brain. Mama Eze saw the drinks coming out and she shouted from across the compound, but it was too late. Uncle Nwafor had found them. Mama Obiageli tried a different strategy. She put all her drinks in her car boot, parked the car outside the compound, and gave the car key to her husband with one instruction: do not move from this car. Her husband sat in that car for 2 hours in the afternoon heat. He was loyal, he was committed, he did not leave. But at some point, he needed to use the toilet. He was gone for 4 minutes. When he came back, the car boot was open and 3 crates of malt had relocated themselves to the party. Nobody saw how it happened. The villagers began to whisper that Uncle Nwafor had spiritual powers. Some said he had jazz. Others said it was simply shamelessness operating at such a high level that it became invisible to the human eye. Either way, the man could not be stopped.
Now, Nwafor did marry. Yes, he found a woman, a good woman named Adaize, who was patient, kind, and who believed for many years that her husband would change. People told her before the wedding. Her own mother held her hand and said, Adaize, that man ate 3 portions of rice at your uncle's burial and he did not know the deceased. Adaize said love would fix it. Love did not fix it. Adaize cooked for her home with her own money while Nwafor was eating at other people's homes for free. She paid school fees when money was tight. She managed everything while her husband dressed in his finest kaftan every Saturday morning, splashed powder on his neck and headed out to support families across Uguike. She endured the morning he came home from a burial carrying a big container of ofe onogbu. She asked him who gave it to him. He said the family gave it to him. She asked him which family. There was a pause. He said the deceased's people. She said, Nwafor, did they give it to you or did you pack it yourself? He said, what is the difference? She endured the Saturday he attended 3 parties in one day. 3. He left the first party, went to the second, then went to the third. He came home that night looking like a man who had just returned from a successful business trip. His belly was so full, he had to sit down slowly like he was lowering a fragile government property. But the worst day, the day that cracked something in Adaize permanently, was the day their son Emeka came home from school. Emeka was 12 years old. He walked into the house quiet and strange. Adaize asked him what was wrong. He sat down, then he asked in a small voice, Mama, is it true that Papa went to Mrs. Obiora's naming ceremony and ate 4 times and then tried to carry the remaining chin-chin when he was leaving? Adaize could not answer her son. She sat on the kitchen stool and she could not find a single word. 2 years later, after one final embarrassment that the whole of Uguike saw with their 2 eyes, Adaize packed quietly, took Emeka, and went to her brother's house in Onitsha. She sent word to Nwafor 3 days later, just one sentence. She said, I have spent 15 years being ashamed of a man who feels no shame. I am tired. Nwafor received the message. He sat with it for a moment. Then he said, she will come back. Let her rest. My people, Adaize did not come back. Emeka grew up in Onitsha. He went to school, he struggled and pushed himself and became a serious young man of 22 who had inherited his mother's quiet dignity and absolutely none of his father's habits. But he carried it, the embarrassment, the weight of a name that made people in Uguike smile knowingly whenever they heard it. He carried it every day, and he promised himself that one day he would say the thing that everyone else had been too polite to say. He just did not know when. Papa Chisom was turning 60. Now, Papa Chisom was a good man, a humble man, a man who had worked honestly all his life and deserved a proper celebration.
Mama Chisom had been planning this party for 3 full months. She had a notebook, she had a budget, she had a caterer, a live band, a photographer, and a woman who specialized in folding napkins into the shape of swans, which was completely unnecessary, but Mama Chisom wanted it, so nobody questioned it. She had ordered 12 crates of drinks. She had cooked enough food to feed the entire local government. She had sewn matching asoebi for her children, her close friends, and 2 cousins who she did not particularly like but invited anyway because of what people would see. She had written a guest list, a proper, physical, handwritten list with names in ink. Uncle Nwafor's name was not on the list. Uncle Nwafor had never needed to be on a list in his life. Lists were for people who needed permission. Uncle Nwafor did not operate on permission. He operated on confidence, movement, and the general chaos that comes with any large gathering of people. By 7:30 in the morning, while the canopy men were still arguing about pole number 3, Uncle Nwafor walked through the gate of Mama Chisom's compound. Both hands were swinging. No bag, no drink, no envelope, no contribution of any kind. Just himself, his kaftan, his powder, and his extraordinary confidence.
Mama Chisom looked up from where she was directing the kitchen women, and her left eye began twitching. This eye had a memory. It had learned over many years of village life to recognize Uncle Nwafor's arrival the same way your body recognizes cold before the rain starts. "Nwafor," she said, with the voice of a woman summoning her last patience. "The party does not start until 12 o'clock. Uncle Nwafor looked around the compound as if he was seeing it for the first time and finding it beautiful. I know, he said warmly. "That is exactly why I came now. You people cannot manage all of this preparation by yourselves. I came to help." Papa Chisom, standing 3 feet away, looked up at the sky. Not for rain, not for anything, just because the sky was the only direction where there was no Uncle Nwafor. And so, Uncle Nwafor helped. He helped by choosing the best chair available and sitting in it immediately. He helped by supervising the canopy men with the full authority of a man who had built canopies all his life, which he had not. He sent 2 boys carrying a table to the left. Then he changed his mind and sent them right. Then he said, actually, the first position was correct. The boys carried the table back to the left. Uncle Nwafor nodded with deep satisfaction, like a man who had solved a great architectural problem. He criticized the arrangement of the chairs. He suggested the food tables should face a different direction. He had opinions about where the band should set up. All of these opinions required other people to do physical work. Uncle Nwafor himself did not stand up once. By 9 o'clock, the nose had deployed. My people, let me explain Uncle Nwafor's nose to you properly, because it deserves its own explanation. This nose was not ordinary nose. This nose had been trained over 20 years of party attendance to detect the location of food and drinks through walls, through locked doors, through rice bags and wrappers, and deliberate misdirection. Scientists have not studied it yet, but they should. It was a remarkable organ. Mama Chisom had hidden her drinks in the store, behind 3 large bags of rice, under a wrapper, next to a box of old shoes she had not thrown away since 2011. She had told nobody. Not her husband, not her daughter, nobody. Uncle Nwafor's nose found them by 9:45. He did not touch them yet. He was a patient man. He simply noted the location quietly, the way a general notes the position of supplies before a battle, and returned to his chair to continue supervising. By 10:30, he had also identified where the small chops were being kept. By 11, he had eaten a plate of jollof rice that a kitchen woman had given him after he told her he was Mama Chisom's late father's younger brother's son. This was not true in any biological sense, but he said it with such confidence and such specific detail that the woman did not question it. He told her the rice needed more salt. She adjusted the salt.
He ate a second helping to confirm the adjustment was correct. My people, the party had not even started. At noon, the real guests began to arrive. The compound transformed. The band began to play. Color everywhere. Asoebi, head ties, agbada, lace, children running between legs. Papa Chisom emerged in his full 60-year-old glory, his agbada pressed and perfect, dancing small to the music as people put money on his forehead. The man was happy. He had earned this day. Uncle Nwafor watched from his chair and felt the warm satisfaction of a man who had helped organize everything. Then he stood up and began to work the room. He greeted guests he had never met in his life like old friends. He was shaking hands, patting backs, calling people by titles he invented on the spot. "Ah, chairman, you are here. Wonderful, wonderful." The chairman in question had never seen Uncle Nwafor before, but the greeting was so warm and so specific that the chairman assumed they had met somewhere important and forgotten. Uncle Nwafor located the drinks table within 90 seconds of it being set up. He positioned himself at a friendly angle, close enough to access, far enough to look casual, and when the young server girl came with her tray, he collected a drink with the smooth, unhurried movement of a man who had ordered what he was receiving. First drink went down. He waited exactly the right amount of time, not too soon, not too late. The science of this timing had been developed over 2 decades. Second drink. Then, the server girl serving his section was quietly pulled aside by Chisom, Mama Chisom's daughter, who had grown up watching this man operate and was not fooled for 1 second. "That man in the blue kaftan," Chisom said quietly, pointing. "Do not serve him again. He is not family. He did not bring anything." The server girl looked confused. "But he told me he was the one who sponsored the drinks." Chisom stared at her. "He told you what?" "He said he was the one who—" "Stop. Do not serve him anything else. Not water, not ice, nothing."
When the server stopped coming to his corner, Uncle Nwafor did not panic. Panicking was for amateurs. He simply stood up, stretched like a man who had been sitting too long and needed to move his body for health reasons, and walked to a completely different section of the canopy. He sat down among a group of men he had never met in his life and immediately joined their conversation with the confidence of someone who had been part of it from the beginning. Yes, I agree completely," he said, nodding at whatever the last person had said. The men looked at him. One of them said, "Do we know you?" Uncle Nwafor laughed, the laugh of a man who found this question charming and slightly silly. "Ah, Ugwueke is not a big place. We have seen ourselves before." The man was not sure, but the laugh was convincing. And then the server came with drinks for that table, and Uncle Nwafor collected his naturally, and the moment passed. Third drink. He was warned out of that section 12 minutes later. He moved again. My people, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Uncle Nwafor had operated in 4 different corners of that party. He had been identified and cut off in 3 of them. He had eaten twice from the main food line by joining at different points and slightly adjusting his kaftan so the servers would not immediately recognize him as the same person. He told at least 6 different people 6 different explanations for his presence at this party. He was a cousin, he was a business partner, he was the one who connected the family with the caterer. He was an old schoolmate of Papa Chisom from secondary school. This last one was the boldest because Papa Chisom was standing 15 feet away, but Uncle Nwafor delivered it without blinking. Mama Chisom sat down at some point and said to her sister Ngozi, who had come from Enugu to help, "Ngozi, I need you to explain something to me. That man has been identified and removed from 3 different sections of my party. How is he still here? How is he still eating? How does this happen?" Auntie Ngozi watched Uncle Nwafor for a moment. "This one," she said slowly, "this one is not a normal situation. This one requires prayer."
But this day, this specific Saturday, was different from all the 300 parties that had come before it. Because at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, an Okada stopped outside the gate. A young man climbed down, tall, quietly dressed, simple shirt and trousers. He had a calm face and careful eyes, the eyes of someone who thought before he spoke. He paid the Okada man, straightened his collar, and walked into the compound holding a small, neatly wrapped gift for Papa Chisom. His name was Emeka, Uncle Nwafor's son. Emeka had heard about this party through his mother's extended family and came to greet Papa Chisom out of respect. He had not known his father would be here. He saw his father from across the canopy. His father, seated comfortably, drink in hand, gesturing at something with the authority of a co-host, had not yet seen him. Then Uncle Nwafor looked up. Father and son saw each other at the same time. Uncle Nwafor's face opened into a great smile. He stood up immediately, arms wide. "Emeka, my son, you are here. Come, come." Emeka walked over. He greeted his father, not with a hug, a handshake, firm, brief. They sat. The men nearby felt the temperature of this reunion and quietly adjusted their conversations. Emeka asked the small questions. "How are you? Are you well? How is the house?" Uncle Nwafor answered everything with the easy comfort of a man who had no idea what was coming. Then Emeka stopped talking. He looked slowly around the party. He looked at the drink in his father's hand. He looked at the way his father was sitting, legs crossed, completely at home, as settled as a piece of furniture. He looked at the server who changed direction when she saw their table. Then he turned to his father, quietly, no raised voice, no performance. "Papa, what did you bring for this party?" The men at the nearby table stopped talking. Uncle Nwafor laughed, the big, experienced laugh, the laugh that had gotten him out of this exact question many times before. "Hey, Emeka, I came to..." "What did you bring, Papa?" Not a question, flat, even. The laugh faded. "Emeka, this is not the place for..." "I am not shouting," Emeka said. Emeka's voice was so calm, it was more uncomfortable than shouting. "I am sitting here asking you a simple question. You are at this man's party. You have been here since this morning. You have eaten his food and drunk his drinks. What did you contribute?" "I have known Papa Chisom for 20 years. "I know you have known him for 20 years, Papa. That is exactly my question. 20 years of knowing this man. He is celebrating 60 years of his life today, and you came here with nothing in your hands. Not one bottle of malt, not a small envelope, nothing." Silence sat down at that table and did not move. My people, I need to explain to you what was happening inside Uncle Nwafor at this exact moment, because this man had been confronted before, many times, by hosts, by their wives, by their daughters, by entire groups of women who formed a committee specifically to address him. He had survived all of it. Shame had no address in his body. There was no room for it. Every space inside him was occupied by comfort, confidence, and jollof rice. But this was his son. This was Emeka, who was 12 years old when he came home from school and asked in a small voice about Mrs. Obiora's naming ceremony. This was Emeka who grew up in another man's house because his father's choices chased his mother away. This was Emeka who never once asked his father for an explanation and who was now asking for one quietly at a table in front of strangers. Something moved inside Uncle Nwafor, small, quiet, like the first crack in a wall that has been standing too long. He opened his mouth, nothing came. He tried again, still nothing. For the first time in 20 years, Uncle Nwafor, the man who had a speech for every situation, a smile for every confrontation, an answer for every accusation, had nothing to say.
Emeka stood up, he straightened his shirt, he walked to the drinks table and put his own money down and bought a round of drinks for the whole table, including his father. He found Papa Chisom and pressed a cash gift into his hand and greeted him properly. He thanked Mama Chisom for the food. He did all of this with the quiet, unhurried dignity of a young man who had decided long ago what kind of person he would be. Then Emeka came back. He stood in front of his father. Uncle Nwafor had not moved. He was looking at the table. Emeka spoke quietly, just for his father. Papa, Mama did not leave you because you are poor, Papa. We were not always poor. She left because every Saturday you put on your best clothes and you went to give your best energy to complete strangers, and you came home to us with nothing. Not money, not food that you bought, not even full attention. We were always waiting for whatever was left after other people's parties finished. She was ashamed. I was ashamed. We were 12 and 15 years old and we were already ashamed of our father's name. He put his hand on his father's shoulder. One brief moment. I still love you, but I needed to say that at least once, so that you hear it from someone who is not a stranger. And then Emeka picked up his small gift and walked out of the compound.
My people, the party continued. The band played on. Children chased each other between chairs. People danced and sprayed money and took photographs. But Uncle Nwafor sat in his chair like a man who had been removed from his own body and could not find his way back in. He was not calculating leftover food. He was not tracking drink supplies. He was not planning his next relocation within the canopy. He was just sitting. And for the first time, for the genuine, true first time in 20 years, he was looking at the party and seeing it properly. Not as a resource, not as an opportunity. He was seeing the host family running from place to place, exhausted, spending money that had taken months to save. He was seeing guests bring envelopes and gifts and drinks, not because anyone forced them, but because that is what you do when you love someone. He was seeing what celebration actually meant, and he was seeing himself inside all of it. 20 years of Saturdays, 20 years of other people's compound, 20 years of eating and taking and living only when there was nothing left to take. His wife had told him, the village had told him, hosts had told him. He had smiled through all of it. But Emeka had not raised his voice. Emeka had not called him names. Emeka had simply stated the facts in a quiet, tired voice, the voice of a son who had carried something heavy for a long time and finally set it down. And that, my people, was the thing Uncle Nwafor could not smile through. When evening came and the party began to empty, Mama Chisom was moving around directing the cleanup when she noticed something that stopped her completely. Uncle Nwafor was standing up to leave at the same time as the other guests. She looked at her sister Ngozi. Ngozi looked back at her. Neither of them spoke. Uncle Nwafor did not go toward the kitchen. He did not drift in the direction of the food containers. He walked toward the gate with the other departing guests. And when he reached the place where Mama Chisom was standing, he stopped. He looked at her and he said, quietly, with no performance, no smile, no big gesture, Mama Chisom, I am sorry for today and for all the other times. Mama Chisom opened her mouth, closed it. The anger she had been carrying since 7:30 that morning could simply not find its shape. She watched Uncle Nwafor walk out of her gate at the same time as everyone else. Aunty Ngozi came and stood beside her. They both watched him go. Did that just happen? Ngozi asked. I do not know,
Mama Chisom said. Now, my people, I will not stand here and tell you Uncle Nwafor became a new man overnight. That is not how people work. That is not how the village works. That is not how anything in this life works. But 3 weeks later, a family on the next street announced a housewarming party. On the morning of that party, the host, a man named Okeke, was arranging chairs in his compound when he heard a knock at his gate. He opened it. His heart went cold immediately because standing there was Uncle Nwafor. Okeke was already constructing the sentence, "Nwafor, the party has not." Then he saw it. Under Uncle Nwafor's arm, a half crate of malt, 6 bottles, purchased with his own actual money from an actual shop that morning. Okeke stared at the malt, stared at the man, stared at the malt again. His brain could not process what his eyes were sending it. Uncle Nwafor set the crate down with the slightly uncomfortable movement of a man doing something for the first time. "I came to support the family," he said, gruff, quiet, not his old booming voice. Okeke said, "Nwafor, did you bring something?" Uncle Nwafor hissed, "Do not make it a drama. Where are you putting the drinks?" My people, the news left that compound before the housewarming party even warmed up. By afternoon, half of Uguike had heard. By evening, the other half. People were calling their relatives in other villages. You will not believe what happened today. Some people said it was a lie. Some said someone must have put something in Nwafor's tea. Some people said they needed to see the bottles themselves before they would accept this information. But Okeke showed them. 6 bottles of malt, Nwafor's contribution. It was not a crate, it was not 12 bottles, it was 6. But my people, for a man who had brought nothing for 20 years, 6 bottles of malt was not a small thing. 6 bottles of malt in Ugueke that day was a revolution. And if you are thinking that Uncle Nwafor sat quietly in that housewarming party like a humble reformed man, my people, I did not say that. He still ate 4 times. He still told 2 people he was the one who connected the host with the caterer. And he still left 20 minutes after everybody else. But he brought 6 bottles of malt. And in Uguike, that was enough to give the man a standing ovation.
The story has ended though. And if Uncle Nwafor is watching this right now, sir, we are not fighting you. We are just asking one simple question. The next party is coming. What are you bringing? Comments below and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.